Hi, I'm Joan Kelley Walker. Thank you for joining me today as we take a stroll down Fash Avenue. And here in the studio with me today is Roger Gingerich, who's the director of Toronto Women's and Toronto Men's Fashion Week. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's just jump right into it. There's a big controversy around the name Fashion Week. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know if I go as far as saying a controversy. It's a global situation right now with the name as a whole. It's the the big four around the world. New York, Paris, Milan, and London are going through their own internal changes on what is a fashion week. Is it as heavy as industry focused as it has been for many decades, and a focus for us as we enter in a new phase of consumer engagement with brand engagements, and obviously Canadian designers on a global stage. The decision had been made to get rid of the name Fashion Week entirely, even though we are very heavily recognized, both Tom and TW, on the global fashion circuit.
So what are we calling it then? We're not calling it Fashion Week.
Stay tuned. In a couple weeks we will be announcing the new name, and it will incorporate embody really who we are as Canadians. It is incorporating film and music and art and talks and shop, followed by the runway component. So it'll be a name that will help market Toronto on a global scale. And at the end of the day, the creative community within the business of fashion, which includes those 6 disciplines. So that name, which will be announced shortly, will be a name that will be one that is marketing both to consumers globally and obviously to the business of fashion on a global scale.
Now, speaking of sponsorship and brands associating with fashion, there's a lot of fashion weeks in Toronto and everybody's vying for the same sponsorship dollars. Do you think there's enough sponsorship to sustain all of it? I
do. It's a question I hear a lot. Toronto is being found more and more as a cosmopolitan city, and believe it or not, we're not there yet where it comes to Hong Kong or New York or London or Paris, where the events that we have here in Toronto are a fraction of what these major cities in the world have globally. So yeah, I do think there's enough to go around. The sponsors, whether they're automotive, whether they're hair companies, whether they are cosmetic brands, whether they are I mean, the sky's the limit of brands that are available out there that want the consumer's eyeballs. No different than film festivals that are around the world, no different than technology festivals that are going around the world. They all vie for a different set of eyeballs, so to speak. So the various events going on in Toronto that range from a curve type of a fashion week, or an Italian fashion week, or an African fashion week, or kids, or whatever have you. There's so much going on in this city right now. Some have duplications of sponsors. Some are very sponsor specific on a specific demographic. And then certain events that are actually on the global stage, even though we are very much a Toronto Canadian focused event, it's profiling our designers on a global scale, and it's also profiling our creative community on a global scale is part of the focus on that. So sponsors within that partner with our organization are looking for global, national, and regional, where some other events here in Toronto are just focused on a local audience, and is perfectly fine for that specific sponsor.
So who do you want to attract to come to your shows?
It's a great question. It's at the end of the day, it's twofold. It is going to be consumers, and it is going to be the business community of fashion. Consumers being, whether you're a film lover or whether or not you're, I'm trying to find another example, a music lover, and you'll travel the world to see your favorite band or Burning Man. I noticed a book around the corner on Burning Man. Those are certain passions. You will travel for that. Well, it's no different within consumers that follow a specific designer or a specific event. And so there's that component on a consumer that is going to see fashion on an international scale, being here in Canada. And then the business of fashion, which we really haven't gone after, over the years. It's, a dear friend and mentor of mine, Joe Mimran, had highlighted a couple years ago on how amazing the creative community is in Canada, but we need to market ourselves better on a global scale. And TIFF does that very well. Not a lot of people know the business of film that goes on during the 10 days of the festival here in Toronto during TIFF. That is our goal within the new marketing of this, is the business of fashion on a global scale, and the Canadian creatives and creatives around the world in film, in music, in art, talk, shop, and then in runway as well. So those are really the breakdown of our consumers we're going for, based around fashion.
So did we miss the mark for filling the seats with the right people, or is this just now a realization that we really need to focus on the business? What are the pillars that a festival needs to be successful?
Yeah, so it's not that we've really missed the mark. You know, the industries are changing, in the hotel industry and the automotive industry. I was with a client this morning just talking about music and how the music industry has changed so much. And, you know, they thought this whole Napster and you know, the Internet of Things and how it was affecting the music industry was going to be a temporary blip, and it's affected the industry dramatically. Well, so it's no different than fashion and a fashion week or an event. It's not that we've missed the mark. The market is evolving, whether we like it or not. And in decades past, markets would evolve over a decade or two, where we're finding it's weeks, it's months that markets are evolving. So it was really a realization within our board, within our mentors, on what is the market on now globally for designers, for them to make a living, for the creative community, both in Canada and on a global scale, and how do you create that proper event or platform to market them all together, because you know it's not just one facet that we're in. If you work in fashion, whether you're a designer, you're dealing with textiles, you're dealing with marketing, you're dealing with PR. It's getting clothing, you know, on the right celebrities, on the right influencers. So in fashion, we all carry many hats, but we've never had a global event or a festival to really give that platform to all markets at the same time.
Right. So who's been leading the charge so far, and is that you going forward?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say myself. I liken myself as to being the master coffee runner. I surround myself with some brilliant people that know their markets very well, and it's putting together that vision, you know, with a group of industry leaders in those, you know, 6 pillars, and listening, you know, to what is the market demand, what are the consumer demands as well out there. How do we market our creative community, designers and PR and stylists and photographers? I mean, the city is full of a hotbed of all of those categories. So leading the charge is a group effort on really finding out where do we need to be, and really listening, you know, arguing and disagreeing, and at the end of the day finding a good common ground. And you know, we've got 8 seasons now behind us with Toronto Men's. We've done a lot of things wrong, and we've done a lot of things right. Same with Toronto Women's. When IMG, you know, pulled out of Canada, you know, there was a void to fill in doing it differently, and doing it where it was about the designers first and foremost, and making sure that they've got that global platform without breaking their bank, because a lot of the designers don't have the financing. We're in a country where the government doesn't finance fashion. So it's either done with private equity, with family money, or, you know, most of the designers are working full-time and working on the designs on the side.
So I want to ask you, if you had a crystal ball and you could look forward 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, how do you see everything in the fashion world in not only Toronto, but in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, the goal, you know, for the next 1 to 5 years is to obviously grow this. It's going through a dramatic change. So the first year, we're going to be doing some baby steps within the music and the film and the talks, the shops, and the art, and they're kind of already mapped out. And then as we grow, turning it more deeper into both the industry component and the consumer. So for the first, you know, season and then leading into the 5, there's always going to be that consumer industry component to it. And then getting deeper, higher profile, more on a global stage, and marketing it on a global stage to make sure that Toronto is already seen, you know, as a creative hub globally for the business of fashion. We're already seen on a global scale on diversity, where it's second nature. If you live in the Toronto area, we live and breathe diversity on a daily scale. So it's already welcoming to the world from that standpoint. We can just take advantage of it. You know, the new format of the 6 pillars will easily fit into that.
Okay, the pillars. What are the pillars?
So between the art, the music, the film, talks and shop, followed by the runway, all very much components that have fashion related to them, with, you know, the final 5 days being very much the runway component. But film, for instance, where there's so much fashion shorts and fashion films. I just finished consulting to the David Cronenberg remake of Rabid, where the storyline was 2 high fashion gals working in a high fashion house. One gets the rabies virus and goes on a killing spree. I hope this isn't getting edited. I gave away the say before it goes away. But had a it's coming out in April, but had a very heavy fashion spin. So on that one there, we profiled 25 Canadian designers all throughout the film.
Is it a Canadian film?
It's produced here in Canada. Well, it's David Cronenberg.
Yeah, beautiful.
Which the 1977, when it was first filmed, it was filmed actually in Montreal. So the Soska sisters out of Vancouver were hired to direct it, came to Toronto and was filmed here all summer. But the business of film here in Toronto is incredible and employs so many in the creative community. We don't really think about how much involvement fashion actually plays in the film industry here in Canada. A friend of mine, George Sully, had done the collaboration for the footwear for Star Trek, which was filmed here in Toronto as well.
I know George.
So it's that community that is not just engaged into, I only do this or I only do that. We wear many hats within the fashion industry, but why aren't we really highlighting this as an event to bring everybody together into one place to share and to network and to collaborate within, you know, I'm doing music videos, or we're doing a music concert and we need to outfit, you know, our tour. The influences of fashion affect so many different markets. We've really focused on 6. You know, for the first number of seasons. Will that change? You know, we've looked at adding cooking, looking at adding sports within certain, you know, committees or organizations. But at the same point, you know, the 6 for us are very focused. It's what our focused, you know, group has been on, that it's best to market from a global scale on where the skill sets are here in Canada.
So are we just being so Canadian in that we're downplaying everything? And I know that you're interviewed with a lot of different media on an international scale. What do you tell the rest of the world when you're asked about what's the industry like in Canada?
Yeah, you know, it's a good one. You know, we are Canadian to a fault, and we don't like to brag. We don't like to say how incredible we are.
But we need to celebrate.
We do.
All of those little wins or big wins. We have to talk about it, because I think that's going to help, you know, mold everyone together.
Yeah, and our humility has kind of hurt us over the past, where we do want to take that back seat, and we have no problem taking that back seat, because there's a lot of fun to be made from, you know, taking the back seat. You're under the radar, and you're doing collaborations with a hotel, or, you know, what Christopher Bates does with Air Canada. You know, those are fantastic collaborations. You know, but to answer your question on, you know, why are we being so Canadian? You know, it's a great question. We need to be Canadian in that we know we're cool, we know we've got something to offer the world. We live and breathe inspiration daily from seeing so many different cultures. You know, we're a unique country, and we have 4 full-blown seasons. We have our -30 summers, sorry, -30 winters.
I love this about Canada. That's one of the things I love the most about being Canadian.
But we don't market that. You know, I agree with you, but how do we market that within the fashion community, in film, in music, and obviously where fashion plays a part in that?
So my last question is, what about the rest of Canada? Do you think they feel left out?
No, you know, and I've lived in Edmonton, I've lived in Vancouver, you know, I married a French Canadian. Canada's a little bit of a funny country that way, where our major cities, you know, our 5 or 6 major cities are really 5 unique, very different markets. So what happens here in Toronto definitely wouldn't happen in Vancouver, definitely wouldn't happen in Halifax, where Angela runs Atlantic Fashion Week, or Montreal. So it's not a matter of them feeling left out. they're just different markets.
So is it a matter of encouraging them to really celebrate their uniqueness?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Where I lived in Edmonton, minus 30 is minus 30. It feels like it's minus 100.
Has to be practical fashion. Can't just be fashionable fashion. It has to be.
100%. Yeah, like you're into a moose knuckles jacket where you pray for minus 30 in a moose knuckles jacket, and very much practicality. But to celebrate what makes them unique, I mean, the River Valley in Edmonton is second to none. It's absolutely stunning. You know, same with Vancouver. Vancouver is a very heavy Asian population, 1 in 3 of Asian descent in Vancouver. So it has a very heavy inspiration from that market. Where you take Halifax, it's an entirely different type of an inspiration or demographic. And then in Toronto, where we're really a Heinz 57 of so many different cultures, we don't take inspiration from one specific market over another. So to answer your question, and you had the answer, it's really each city celebrating their own.
Roger, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
Thank you.